right. So we're going to be talking about the evolving world of RPG arrays. That's what John and I are going to be talking about. John and I are going to be I will be your appetizer, and John will be your dessert. The main course in the middle is Alan Seiden, who's going to talk about a topic that I happen to know is a very popular one, one that I talked about yesterday, among other things, the VS Code for I. So I know that a lot of people are looking forward to that. I think that's it. Remember that the Q&A tab is for questions about the content of our presentations. The chat is about everything else. It's a good community out there talking to each other. It's a great thing, but it's not the right place for your questions, your content questions. So just remember that in all the lunch and learns. All right, so, whoops, sorry, oh dear, heaven forbid. There we go. I couldn't get my chart to move there for a second. So we're talking about today's RPG arrays. Now, RPG, those of you who have a long history in RPG like I have, know that arrays have been around forever, but they're not anything like they used to be. And I'm not just talking about free-form definitions, I'm talking about all the different things you can do with them. We're assuming that everybody already knows the basics of arrays and data, including data structure arrays. And we also assume that you know how to do all these things in free form. I forgot to put that on the chart. So all of our stuff is going to be in free form. If you need a little help, if you're not as familiar with free form or you're not as familiar with arrays, or even RPG for that matter, you might want to take a look at the handout itself, because it has, right after this chart, there are 3 extra charts in there with some reference that I won't be going through here. And by the way, the handout, all the way through the handout, there are lots of extra notes pages. So any of the rest of you that are familiar with arrays may want to take a look at the handout for that purpose as well. There's more than what you're just seeing on the screen here. We're going to focus on things like the newer features, like the for each operation code, the in operator, the new array-oriented built-in functions. I'm going to cover all of that stuff. And John only has one job. John's going to talk about dynamic or variable dimension arrays. Now, it may sound like he's getting off light, but he's not. Trust me, that's a big topic with a lot of things to understand about it, but really, really cool stuff. So you're going to want to hang in for part 2 to hear John talk about that. So iterating through arrays. You probably know already, hopefully all of you know already, that you can do one of the first 2 ways. You can do the do until, iterating through by, doing the counter yourself and keeping track of all of that and making sure you reset the counter and all of that fun stuff. That's why I call it the hard way. You've got to do more work. The easier way is a for loop, where you can say, well, just do 1, 2, however many elements there are in the array. And by the way, please don't ever hard code array limit values. Please. That's just a bug waiting to happen. So when the array size changes for whatever reason in the future. So that's just a little extra tip there. The new way is the for each, and that's an opcode, a feature that's available in many other languages, many other modern languages, and now, being a modern language, RPG has exactly the same thing. So for those not familiar with it, we haven't had it in RPG for very long. The syntax is for each target in array, which means that on each iteration through the loop, the content of the next element in the array is copied into the target variable. So note that it's copied, not referenced. This isn't a pointer-like thing, where it's just pointing to it. This is an actual copy of the data. So that means, for one thing, that this is not a practical solution if the value, you want to modify that value, for example, because you'd be modifying just a standalone field. You wouldn't be modifying the data in the array at all. And that's probably not what you want in most cases. So in that case, you would just use, the regular for loop, like we saw in the previous chart. So just to be clear, just go through this example. I won't go through all the examples in great detail, but this one I think I will, because I want to make sure it can be a little confusing. So annual sales is our array. Notice the dim there. So it's the array. Sales per month is just a standalone field. We've defined it like annual sales, which is a good practice, of course, because we need for them to be defined the same way. That just means that it's a packed 9-2 field, not an array, just a packed 9-2 standalone field. Now, when you go through the for each, the first time through, the first element of the annual sales array will be copied into the sales for month. And you can do whatever you want to do with that value. And then the next time through, it'll move on to the second one, etc. Right? So hopefully that's pretty clear. It gets a little more complex, not much, when we're talking about data structure arrays. So as I said, I'm assuming you're all familiar with data structure arrays, including the fact that they need to be qualified. So I'm going to actually need to be qualified as well as the like DS. We'll talk about that in a moment. So basically, the DS array works exactly the same way in that a copy of the first element, that is the first set of data in the data structure, gets copied into customer with each iteration. Customer being a data structure that looks exactly the same, except that it's not an array, right? So it works exactly the same way, except that because it's qualified, we have the customer.custstate when we want to refer to one of these things. So if we want to refer to the custstate within the data structure, we have to qualify that name. If you're one of these people who isn't real keen on qualification, not that it's a bad thing. There are people, there's a school of thought out there that everything should be qualified. But if you're not into qualifying, it does mean a little more typing. You can make a simple change to the way you do this, and it becomes a simpler, more streamlined, I guess, way to refer to the data that you're using in the for each. So basically, in this case, what we're doing is we're sort of turning it upside down, whereas before we defined the array first and then said that the standalone was like that. We're defining the standalone first, and we're saying the array is like that, which means that now when we move the data into the customer, that's just a regular old data structure now, right? So I don't have to qualify anything for those. So if I want to refer to the state, I can just say custstate without qualification. So that's that's probably a slightly easier way of dealing with for loops. Oh, sorry, not for loops. For each loops with data structure arrays. Now, John talked a bit about arrays in his favorite things session, and there were a lot of discussion in the chat about what if you're not processing the whole array. So let's talk a little bit about that. There are various ways you can do it. Of course, you can just keep track yourself of, which is the last one we put in, and then you can do that with a regular for loop. You can just refer to that variable for your for loop. But for other cases, many other cases, a simpler way, including in the for each, a simpler way of doing this is going to be to use the percent subarray. So that can be used anywhere that an array name can be used. And so you see the example here. I'm saying that I only want to process the elements in the simple array from the first element to the highest used element. Again, keep assuming that I have kept track of which one was the last one that was used. By the way, another way to deal with processing part of an array, hang around for part 2, because if you decide to deal with sometimes you don't necessarily have to have the subarray. You can just make it a variable dimension array. But that requires listening to John in the next part. And multidimensional arrays, this is really not terribly new, but a lot of people are just now getting into it because of things like JSON and XML and things like that. In this case, we're talking about sort of spreadsheet data where we've got our product data where we have the sales for the month. And if we want to populate that total for year value there, we could use a for loop for like you see down here, which just loops through and does a crossfoot of all the sales for months for each of the elements in the array. Now, of course, I wouldn't use a for each loop in this case because we're updating a value in the array, right? So just a callback there to what I said earlier. We've also got a new operator. the in operator. So this is if you only need to simply check that a value exists in an array. You know, you're not going to do anything, you don't even need to know exactly which element it was, but just is it in the array at all? In that case, a very simple, the simplest way to do that now is using the in operator. Of course, you could always do a lookup, and you'll need to do a lookup if you need to do something else with that value. You need to know which one it was or what its value is. But for simple things like this, you know, if the account number is in the accounts to process, I'm assuming there's an array out there with all those values populated. You know, you can see, and you can do the subarray thing that we talked about before in this case as well. Oh, if you want to say if it's not in, you don't say it by what I just said. You don't say not in. You have to say it like it's down here, like at the last example. If not, and then the parentheses, you tell it what it is that what you're looking for. So the in is inside the parentheses, the not is outside the parentheses. So that's important to keep in mind. There are times where what you want to do is you want to deal with the minimum or the maximum value in an array. And there are other times where you just need to know the index or which one it is. Or if you get that index, once you get that index, of course, then you can retrieve the value from there if you want. So, so let's assume that we have an array. So our sales by month here. Now I had a little chicken and egg thing here because I'm talking about percent list, which I haven't mentioned yet. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to have to cover it briefly here, just so you know what's happening. All these values here are going to be put in individually into the elements of sales by month. All right, so that's basically what's happening with that percent list there. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But the point of this chart is to say, what is the maximum, which element contains the maximum value? Not what is the maximum value, but which element contains the maximum value. So then I can use, for example, a display like this, and I can display something like, okay, the high index is 10, and the value of that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think if we were to count down, we would see that 1, 2, 3, 4 is the 10th value in the element. But we use that by using the index from max array. And min array, of course, works the same way. So we have a min array example here, where we have the data structure array. And so we want to pull the from the sales data. And notice the way that this is done to say that we want to use the current one, the sales to date value of that data structure is what we're looking for. And so we're looking for the minimum of that value, the index of that minimum. And then, of course, we do the same thing with that display to say, you can tell it, say who the poorest performing rep is, and everybody can shame him, I suppose. Another thing that's used quite often is the ability, or needed quite often, is the ability to split a text string into words, if you will, or some other kind of thing like CSVs is another good example, which we'll talk about on the next chart. But this is a simple one, which says I have something like this variable that has the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, and I want to split it out into individual words. By default, the separator is a space. So all those spaces in there are the delineators to tell me when the word, tell RPG, when the word ends. And so I can display each word individually, and the result looks like this. You have some more notes on this particular page if that's not clear, but hopefully that helps. By the way, in this case, I didn't have more than one space between any of those words, but if I did, I would still, it would just ignore the multiple separators back to back. Now, this is an example of you specifying what you want the separators to be. So you can have a second parameter there that will, you can put whatever values you want to be the separators that you're looking for. So you have the string that you can see here with lots of quotes and periods and question marks and exclamation points and all of that stuff. And I said, use all of those things, including space, as separators for these words. And you see the results that comes out of here. Now, I mentioned CSVs before. There's one thing you need to understand about this percent split if you're using it with CSVs is that, remember what I said about it, the two spaces back to back are ignored, or the second or in subsequent ones are ignored. Same thing happens with commas if you're doing this with commas. So you have to use another special value called allsep as another parameter, a second parameter after the actual, or third parameter rather, sorry, after the separators, the list of separators that you want to use. So that's an important thing to keep in mind if it's CSVs you're working with. Otherwise, something like the one you see here, ABC, 1, 2, 3, 2 commas, DEF, that's going to come down to only 3 elements. If you use allsep, it comes down to 4 elements, which is probably what you want in that situation. So we've seen how we can separate things into an array. What about bringing them all together again? Bringing things together that we have concatenate for doing that. And this came out in 7.4. Concatenate all the elements in a character array using a common separator. So just think about all the different occasions where you might be able to use something like this in combination with that list thing that we're going to talk about later. This might come in very handy. So we have our array, and you can see the examples, including an example of using subarray with it. So I hope that's going to be clear enough for everybody. If not, I think there's a few extra notes on that one as well. And here's percent list. We've already seen a little bit of a preview of this. It's allowed anywhere that array is allowed, except for things like sort array, lookup, and subarray, and it wouldn't make sense to use them there anyway. But basically, the list can be variables, function calls, literals, anything that only requirement is that they all have to come down to this a compatible data type. That is, they have to all be character, they have to all be numeric, although not necessarily the same. You know, if it's a packed field and a zone field would be treated all as numeric, and that's fine. So you see the examples here. It can also be used to assign values to an array. So what we're doing here is we're saying we have a user's array, and percent list is now loading the first 3 element into the user's array. My comment there lost a couple of letters. Must have been a little tired when I wrote that one. Anyway, and you can also load the monthly sales figures. So, you know, if you've already got sales, maybe in from a database file or something for the 12 different values, you could put them into an array really easily this way. Other ways you can do it, but this one's easy. Here's some other really good uses for it. You can, instead of doing something like this, you know, if the status is this, or this, do something. Now you can just say, if order status is in this list, and then do whatever it is you wanted to do there, or use it as a for each iteration as well. So put all the values in there. So percent list can be used as an array without actually creating an array to put the data in. And with that, I want to turn this over now to the meat of our sandwich. And I am really looking forward to hearing what Alan has to say about VS Code for I. Alan, you can share your screen. Take
Yes,
over.
fantastic. Thank you very much, Susan, and good to see everyone here. This is a subject that is near and dear to me and probably all of us here in IBMI land. So let's share my screen now. Okay, can you see this? Getting started with VS Code for IBMI. Thank you so much. So happy to be here talking about this. Yeah, so about VS Code for IBMI, what is this? It's an editor, a code editor, but it's a lot more than that. And I think it can work for everybody on the platform. It's totally inclusive. So we'll talk about why Code for I is eclipsing, that's a little joke, RDI and SEU, how to shorten your learning curve, about this DB2 for I extension, which I think everybody can use no matter what language you're working in. Some tips, helpful hints and tips. Some of these are going to be on slides I'll show, and some are going to be live demos that I think, the ones I think they're extra cool. A few notes about AI, how VS Code is what enables AI to come to our world of development. And then code for training and support. Let's get into it. So long live SEU. This is Patrick's slide. Yeah, it hasn't been updated since 2008. That's 17 years, a long, long time. It's missing so much. It's missing your free form format RPG and so many other functions and things you can do, as well as just being, it's part of that perception also of what IBMI is about, that it's old. And so we can do better than that and bring new people onto the platform at the same time. Um, so Visual Studio Code is, we call it the next generation uh, development environment. It is easy to start with. You download and go. No license fees. I mean, as powerful as RDI is, and I do recommend you watch Susan's presentation from yesterday. Get the recording of that because she does a lot of comparison, much more detail than I will do, and she has different material than I'm showing here. So watch that too. But we all know about the difficulty of getting the licenses installed, the installation, and just a company has to be already committed to get to buy RDI. With Visual Studio Code, they could take a chance, say, oh, maybe this is okay. Maybe this platform's all right, and get young people on there, productive right away. If you look on the right side of the screen, these comments were posted on our first blog post about VS Code for I starting to come here. And those were two younger developers. Incidentally, they had no trouble at all with RPG, IBMI, or anything. They got trained and they're fantastic. But they've been looking for something like this. Love it. First, best thing since sliced bread. And this is from someone coming from JavaScript, PHP background. No prejudice at all against RPG. I loved VS Code. It kind of made it all nice for them. Okay. This is an open source project. It's a combination. And if you look at this screen here, you will see IBM people. Liam's there in the upper left, Sebastian and IBM people. I'm here. I'm number 14 on the contribution list, mostly with documentation. But it's not. We're not just saying it's all IBM's job, and it's not just all the community's job. It's everyone together, and it's one of the really fun parts of this, and also very productive parts that it meets the community's needs, as well as what IBM needs to do. Okay. Now, how to get started, and then mastering the basics. So one thing I recommend is check out the video series by Patrick Bear. He goes through the basic steps of installing, connecting objects, uh, how to compile, comparing, and things, some of which I'll show today. But you will find it very, very informative. So this is our idea, that this is for everyone. There should be no barriers to using Code for I, whatever language, whether it's open source, RPG, COBOL, or anything else. You should be able to use it. So that's why Patrick took the time to put these videos together. Some other resources, and then we'll get into examples that I'm going to show you. If you don't know, we, Site and Group, we do a free meeting every other Friday, just about, called Code for I Fridays. It's done through Zoom, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We've had over 50 of these meetings, and we're getting like, I think we had 87 attendees the last time. And the next meeting is going to be Friday, November 7th. And you'll see what everyone's doing with this tool, updates, people ask support questions here and there when we have time, learning how to use the debugger, not learning how to use it, troubleshooting. They're great, great community meeting. I recommend you come to that. It's basically sitinggroup.com/Fridays is a shortcut to that. We have Siting Group tips/tips, hands-on training, and we'll get into that later a bit more detail about our professional hands-on training and support. The links are there. But to install it, again, you can watch the videos for more details, but you just basically go to the link here and you download and install it, run the installer. And then you go to the, like with these four little squares and a little piece coming out of it, that's the extensions. IBM i Developer Pack, type that, Development Pack, excuse me. And it will install all the basic things that you need to have. Then you say, I want to connect to a server. I called mine Sidon. I type in the address and the name, password. There's a lot of security things you can enable on this too. Okay. The login basically uses SSH, which is a very standard kind of login for IBMI. Then once you're in, you can do all the magical things that we're going to show here. So first, I'm going to go into this DB2 for I extension. And this is just a wonderful extension that's free and it's included. It lets you do a lot of the things you normally do in Access Client Solutions, but without leaving your development environment. And it's all in that the second to bottom, that thing that looks like a database there. You can do a ton of neat things in here. You can look at your schemas, look at tables. And I'm going to go in here and actually do some of this live right now. So I'm going to go and yes, I'm on a Mac, by the way. Visual Studio Code. I will open this up. I hope you can see this. I will connect. So this is the IBMI, little picture of an IBMI. Click there, and I have my site-in group server already set up. I'll click on that. And the lower right, it tells us what it's doing. It's checking that everything's there, everything's cool and all right. We are open. So to I'm going to go to this bottom icon here, and that's for DB2 for I. Okay, special extension for DB2 for I. This is being worked on by IBM, Scott Forresty and his team, as well as the community. So it's really neat. We have a schema browser here. So if I want, I can look at sample. This is very similar to Access Client Solutions. To look at our libraries, check out our tables, like the employee table and the samples, and the getting started videos cover this in a bit more depth. But I have all my fields here. If I right click, I can see generate SQL. I can look at advised indexes for those of you who are into performance. This can help. Okay, permissions, rename, delete, copy data, and clear, and so forth. So it's really, really convenient to have all that available, as well as all the other kinds of DB2 objects. I can look at past queries that I ran, statement history. So for those of you who don't like to type the same things over and over again, it's really handy. So here's one. I was typing that yesterday. Select from sample.employee. I'll press Control R and let's just run that. Whop. Do you see how fast that was? All that live data? It's incredibly fast. I think you'll see with Visual Studio Code, it's really fast. I don't know about you, but I don't know. My short-term memory isn't all it was with everything I have to think about. So I don't want to have to wait by the time I remember what I was doing. It's too late, you know? So this is a really neat thing here. This is just a normal query, but there's so much more that I can do with this. For example, people ask all the time, can I make an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV? Yes, all I have to do is type CSV and then all my select and watch this. Zoop. The data comes back in the CSV. And from there, if I want, I can save it. Okay, save it on my computer. So if someone asks you for a CSV, yes, you can make one. What else would you like? How about JSON, which is an extremely popular format that's used in APIs, sending data around? What about that? Can I get it? Yes. All the data comes back as JSON data. All at your fingertips, all included. What about something else? What if I want to do, let's say, update? If I want to make a change to this, excuse me, yes, I can do an update as well. So now if I want to go in, I can say, actually, okay, let's give Michael a raise. So it says 41250. Let's give a big raise, $10,000, 51250. That's all I had to do is go down to the bottom and click it. Now, that's because I have permissions. If I didn't have permissions to change the data, it wouldn't let me do it. Now, if I click again, yep, the salary has been increased. Isn't that nice? Here's another trick. There's also Content Assist, and you will see this is throughout Visual Studio Code. You will see Content Assist. It will help me. I don't have to go and look. I don't have to make a green bar printout of 100 pages and look at it and see what I'm doing. Now I can actually do a Content Assist. So, okay, that's good. It's actually showing me a message. I left something out. It's telling me, oh, your syntax is wrong before I run it. It's going to save me time. But I can press Control Space, and I can select Excuse me, I can press Control Space. Yep. I can select some columns here, or I can do one at a time if I wish. So I can do this. Let's get birth date, bonus, and commission, for example, and run that. Okay, very easy, and it will save me time. I can also do another trick, because those of you, again, who are interested in performance, I can run and explain statement. This is something you normally need a separate tool somewhere in Navigator, but look, gave me my results, and it told me something interesting. It says it actually did a table scan here, meaning it didn't use indexes. That's not a problem for a small table, but if you had a large table and it was doing a table scan, that's an issue, excuse me. It's telling me everything about what it did, all the fetch time, the opens, the job, all those things. I can do a lot more in here too. So this is your go-to tool. You can kind of do everything and stay here and not have to switch around all the time. Now, here's another one I think you might be very interested in, RPG. Now, what do you think this does? Oops, sorry. Yeah, it actually creates a free RPG data structure based on the SQL that I had here. So that's without AI, even without AI, without anything, it's doing that for me. So that's going to save me some time. And this also fits in with this theme that I thought about since the beginning, that VS Code lets new people and younger people and anyone new to the platform be productive quickly. So say I'm just learning free RPG. I don't have to memorize the syntax just yet. I can get something that's guaranteed correct based on SQL, which is a language that we all know, okay? Or many of us know how to use it. Okay, so that's this. If you have some questions, you can ask there, but that's what I wanted to show with the DB2 for I extensions. It's very fantastic and powerful and quick, and I stay in there. I'm there all the time. Okay, let's go to something else. This to actually look, I'm going to close this and let's look at some code now. Let's check out some code. How do you work with code? Let's see how to do that. There's what's called an object browser, which lets me look at code and work with code, compile, edit code, and so on. So we have what we call filters. So you can see different bits here I want to see. There's one like a Patrick Bear library that has QRPG, LESRC. So I don't have to look at everything. I can just see what I want to see. Notice there's a lock on this because we have it in protected, read-only protected mode. I don't want to mess up anything Patrick did. His code is perfect. I'm not messing around with that. And I actually use that protected mode myself if I'm on like a client's system, customer system, and I'm reading the code. I don't want to change anything. Of course, they can control that using normal object access, but if they didn't, and I just want to read it, I can do that. So I think this also means that RPG becomes less mysterious. You can give read-only access to managers or people who aren't RPG coders and let them see it. It's not such a mystery. Let them in and take a look. Okay. Now I'm going to create a filter here. That's what I want to work with. So I'll call it Allen source PF. So any source physical files in the Allen library. And the object types is source PF, so I'll just leave it like that, but I could change it to actually look at other objects as well. Here's where I could choose the protected mode, but I'm not going to do that. Now save settings, and now this opens Allen, any source physical files under Allen. Now from here, I can do some searches if I want to search. So for example, I do some work with PHP. Okay, so if I type PHP, that's funny, I did that. Actually, I should do that on this, pardon me. I should click on this and go in here. Why don't I do this? RPGLE. So I could look for my extensions, for example, or SQL RPG LE, and those all show up. From here, I could actually do like, yeah, let me just do that, and I'll show you something else that's interesting. I can click this filter, and then it shortens it. You see the only things I want. Why don't I do this? I will type, like there was something that looked up the price of bonds or something, okay? It shows me these 200 treasuries. If I click filter, and I only have that to work with. So it's really, really convenient. There's another type of searching I can do as well. Beyond that, I can search within a source within the file. So this is interesting. I'll search source file. And if I type PHP, it will see it's actually found something for me that had PHP in it. If I search, pardon me, I went into the wrong thing. I'm going to I'm just gonna yeah, here we go. I'm back here. Great. Let me search for something else. Let me search for something else like this. Womp. Okay, it's finding things in here. It's really nice. And by the way, if you have our PF grep installed, it'll be even faster. Okay. All right. Very good. So let me just go back to this. So I hope you got that, all the kinds of searching you can do. Now I'm going to do something very interesting. Just take a breath. This is going to be interesting. I have a source member called, not going to do this one yet. I'm going to do another very cool thing called, here, let's go back here. Our time savers. There's something called content assist. Okay. I told you that this content assist is everywhere. It means that if you start typing something, VS Code starts filling it in for you and tells you what it all means, like this declare -s declare variable. Okay. It fills in the syntax for you. So again, wonderful for someone learning the language and a shortcut for everybody learning to do this. I'm going to do another demo right now. I am going to show you how to extract a procedure. So this is all for modernization. I'm just going to call it procedure.rpgle, and I have something prepared that I'm going to copy in. Okay, so you have a can have a subroutine, and you can extract make this into an actual procedure. Okay, so if I hover over this, so you see this begin SR, convert me to proc. That's our challenge. If I click on this, convert to procedure, what do you think it'll do? Yes, it did. Free format procedure. So it takes basically the variables that are global, it puts them inside. This kind of code is much easier to debug, to understand, for someone to be confident in, rather than everything being global. This way you can see your input and your output and so on, your X coming in from the outside. This is called extracting procedure, and this is built into our extensions. Very nice. I think it is. So if you have any questions, you can ask. And tell you the truth, my career started as an RPG programmer. That was RPG 3. I learned by those ATS tapes. We've come a long way since then. So even I need some help sometimes in RPG. My team members are experts, but I don't do it all the time, so I can actually use these tools myself. Now coming back here, taking a look at this, I mentioned the content assist. It's something called snippets. I know Patrick loves these snippets. You can predefine code that you can just drop into your programs, create them in any language. And so here's an example of headers, prefix, just things that you would always put in all the time. You can create them, press F1 and type snippets, and then you get to choose your snippets and pick the one you want, like this rpgle.json. Select that, and it gets put right in. Actually, this is just looking at it, okay. But you can put it right in. So there's a lot of cool things you do with snippets. Another time saver is called peek. If you right click on something like this print, and you could then peek definition. So it's called peek. It means it's not making you jump around in your code. It just shows you what's available. Like this here, it's showing you the definition here. And then you can click the X and get right out of it when you're done, this printf. Okay. So very easy. Peek. Some other nice things. Find all references is another one. It shows you references to what you're doing here, like this printf, where is it being used? Also very handy to understand. It's been said that we spend much more time reading code than writing code. I think it's so true. So any tool we have that helps us understand someone else's code, our own code from 6 months ago, so valuable. There's also an outliner here. It's not the same as an RDI, but it does something for it. If you press F1 and then focus outline, you will get this, and you can see all the definitions from the program, the printf and the message, for example. The message defined as char 50, so you can find out and don't make mistakes. And printf, how that's defined. Later on, I'll show there's some other extensions that are other outline tools that are really neat things. This read-only and protected mode I showed you before. Okay. Now, what about paste and open source? Well, there's what's called an IFS browser, which gives easy access to Node and PHP and Python and everything, all the stuff on your IFS, even as auto complete, which you can see. If you look at this screenshot here, I started to type in PHP echo, ECH, and boop, it shows me the definition of echo. So it's really, really nice. I have another demo here coming up. So let's take this. Here's one called compare source. Compare source. So I'm going to make a copy. How many times do you have multiple versions of something, when you're not sure what you got? So I've got fixed and fixed 2, fixed format 2. Let's try to compare with a source member. There was a rumor going around that you had to put your files on the IFS or something, but it's not true. You can, but source members work fine. So I got fixed and fixed 2. Now they're the same right now. We say comment by Alan. Okay, now you see the difference. On the left, it's red, and on the right, it's green. So that's where the difference is. What if I take this out? This was a commented out line. Take that out. Okay, look, so now it's green on the right side. This is similar to people who are used to Git will often see this. They'll see this sort of a Git style comparison where red means deleted and green means added back in. Okay, so that's a pretty common thing. So hope you enjoy that. It's a great way of comparing. You can also even compare one system to another as well, incidentally. Okay, so that's another nice thing. Okay, so you can also compare IFS actually. I think I'm going to show you that. IFS browser. Yeah, I have some neat stuff in here in PHP. So if I go in and look at this one to connect with PDO, I can make a copy of that. Boop. And now we'll compare with IFS file, PDO2. Yep, see? So it works for the IFS, all you people. It works for everybody. Visual Studio Code works for everybody. That's the neat thing. I really like that. Okay. Okay, very good. I know I'm going fast, but you can watch these videos and see. Now, I'm going to show you something that I think is very intriguing. Yeah, we have a debugger, and that's been come a lot. So if you tried the debugger last year, try it again. It's a lot easier. And we are going to have training on it as well. All you people who want to step through and see everything. Yep. Terminal support. I love this. We can actually, so here's my shortcut. I press Shift Control J, and I have my 5250 right there, right in the application. Boop, there I am. And if I am a open source person, I can also go into Pace and start typing things like that in Pace, okay? So that's terminals. This 5250 support is fantastic, and we have a couple of helpful hints about how to use it. Now, this linter, now in the world of RPG, maybe you don't see linters a lot, but it's a way to ensure consistency and help save us time and find mistakes. It's included in the IBMI developer development pack, okay? I'm going to show you something that I hope interests you. So I have this fixed, right? Now, people ask, how do I make this into free format? There are vendor tools that are very full featured. There have been extensions of Visual Studio Code, but they weren't always maintained. There was one by Brian Garland that kept us around for a long time, going very well. But there's a new one, and I'm installing this on the fly right now. Bob Cozy, do you know him? Fix to free, RPG4 to free. I just installed it. I just installed it now. Okay. So, um, yep. So I believe it's installed and it should work. So let's see if this actually works for me. Yep. Now, do you notice this? Convert RPG4 to free format. It just appeared. Do you see how fast that was? Anyway, I just did that. Now type free, and now I have a free format program. Nice, huh? Right. Now, one more thing. One more thing. I'm going to turn on this linter on this code here. And to do that, I have to do one thing here. I'm just going to create this linter configuration. Do I want to create one? Yes. Yes, I do. Indentation is 2. That looks good to me. That looks good to me. I think I may have had to, yeah, up here we go. Yep. It's telling me it's all wrong. The indentation is wrong. It should be 2, for example. See? It's telling me my mistakes because it really is not formatted that well. And now what else I can do now that I have the linter? I can format document. Whoop, look at that. I have a beautifully formatted free format RPG source member here using a combination of the Bob Cozy fix to free, which is a free, it's fixed to free and it is free, and the linter. So I hope you liked seeing that because for me, it was a lot of fun doing that. So let's just go on from here. What about display file DDS editing? This is the one that people ask about a lot. Because you may know that in IBM i 7.6, IBM has removed Screen Design Aid and Report Layout Utility. The idea was you should have moved to RDI a long time ago, which was supported there and drag and drop and everything. And what about Code for I? Do we have replacements for Screen Design Aid and Report Layout Utility? Code for I is getting there. IBM and the community are together are working on an editor or renderer that replace this. But meanwhile, uh, again, the amazing thing about Code for I is the community can come up with their own solutions. Christian Larson did this for his own needs. He needed something because he wants to stay modern and stay on IBM i 7.6 or go to it. He created his own extension. It's called Display DSPF Edit. There's a video if you want to see more. We covered this in detail when Christian came to our meeting on August 11th, 2025. He came along for the meeting. And there's a testimonial on his extension page, on Christian's extension page, saying that this extension has 80 to 90% of good old SDA. No more SDA for me. So Christian did not create this with the intention of being a screen design aid replacement, but is getting there. You could see in the screenshot, you can edit the DDS and it shows up on the renderer below, and you can go back and forth. You could do centering. He really does a lot. So I think we're quite a bit of the way there toward what we need. Other extensions. The tool vendors are really rising to the challenge to make Visual Studio Code the center of their tools. I'm not mentioning vendor names, but I happen to know the change management vendors, the ones who are kind of still the most active, have created extensions so that their tool can work inside VS Code. Integration tools, I know of some that have done this as well. And then in the world of AI, Copilot was one of the first because VS Code was Microsoft and Copilot is Microsoft. They're one of the first. Claude now has one that's very well supported and other ones as well. I mentioned Bob Cozy's RPG4 to free format. Fast and PF Furious Search by Ravi That's a way of another way of searching source code that's a bit easier, that utilizes our citing group's PF grep underneath, display PF edit, and many, many others. People create these tools just for themselves. Ricky Thompson did one called RPG end code block. So if you have an if, you can have an end if, for example. And he used AI to teach himself how to create an extension. After not being like a TypeScript expert or anything, he learned using AI. So plenty of things coming along. There's one for people who really would like an advanced outliner tool. Here's one that's coming along. There's a free beta program that's available from the INME company in Germany. If you know them, Marcus Litters and his team, you've seen them on some of our meetings. There's a demo video, and their goal is not only to match what RDI had in an outline tool, but to create the features that he wished that he had had during his career. Now, this may not be so important for new RPG code, but to look at old code, the outliner could really be helpful. I think this will probably be a paid product in the future, but for now you can get a beta, and I'll just show a few things on here. It has the feature of a field reference, similar to other RPG editors that you might have found, like the RDI one. There's you can open code of any prototype or subprocedure or call there. It actually finds the code. It does the same thing that the compiler would do. It searches in the binder and pulls up wherever the code is. It will find it. That's a very nice thing. Even go-tos now. No one here has go-tos in their code, do they? Well, you might. You know, when you're a consultant, you see a lot of different kinds of code, and sometimes you're brought in for the difficult ones. So in this case, it actually matches in color coding the go-tos with the tags. So these are all things that are possible, and this would not have happened on a green screen, and I don't think it's going to happen on RDI. RDI is kind of probably more or less staying the way it is, or at least you don't have the active community creating extensions the way we do here. Also dealing with indicators. There's a note here, the move an indicator array is found even if you use a variable. You cannot fool this outliner. That's basically what we're learning here. So again, these slides will be available to all of you. And if you want a beta of this and help them to work on this, then you've got go to Morgana at ime.rocks to get a beta of that. What about AI? The power of AI. So some of you may have heard of Project Bob. This is IBM's strategic solution that replaces the concept of the Watson code assistant. It runs in Visual Studio Code. This is the place where everything new is happening. It was announced and demonstrated at Tech Exchange. And you could see on the right side of the screen at the bottom, these are pictures that some of my colleagues took. It was really big. And in the picture, you can see that it's actually answering questions about security. And it found an SQL injection vulnerability, and it's saying, what would you like me to do? Should I try my solution? And so on. On this page, I have links to the main Bob page, so you can get onto the waiting list. You cannot buy it right now, but you can get on the waiting list. There's IBM I guided tour sessions that IBM provides. You can get on that list and join them. And my colleague, Jack War, wrote an article about the evolution from Merlin to Bob. This is not to be confused with the Better Object Builder that was also called Bob. That's a different thing. Bob would work with all types of code. Here was something from the Tech Exchange, and Jack War did one of their demo labs. And he typed, please document this project. And it created a markup, a markdown style document, okay, that that basically was documenting it. Please document this project. This is Jack War's picture. Other AI, and there's a lot that's possible. In fact, on our Code for I Friday meeting, sometimes I just say, who has done something interesting with AI in Code for I? And someone always says, I did. Let me show you. And we'll often share a screen and do a demo from this. So this is somebody, and just for privacy, I made this screenshot really small just to not disclose anything. But here's several quotes from this particular meeting, September 5th, from using Copilot in VS Code. Everyone has O-spec programs. With some prompting, Copilot can change O-specs to DDS for printer files. Another quote, it understands a fairly complex program. It can understand the cycle and even convert from record level access to SQL. Pretty amazing. And this is not instantly. It takes some prompting and some trial and error. And this person was very methodical. He put in the comments what his prompting was, what he tried and what he did, and to see what his results were. Also getting popular is Claude Code for Visual Studio Code. That's another one that people really like. And there's many, many more. I'm just giving you a couple of examples that I know integrate really well with Visual Studio Code. So if you here in your company, we want to do something with AI, this is a good place, to do it. Of course, you be careful. Don't provide your company data to these things, but here's very popular ways to do it. Training and support. So if you feel like, yes, I'd like to dive in to Code for I, you can watch those free starter videos, come to our Friday meetings. But if your company is kind of serious about it, then sign up for Citing Group's hands-on starter training. It's paid training. The price is reasonable. It's live. You do what we're showing. So you make sure you can connect. You can connect. You can do everything that we show you how to do right there. So you come away actually knowing it and feeling confident that you can do it. It doesn't take that much of your time. In the course of a week, we have 3 sessions, taking whatever time that needs. And then you can practice on your own. We provide unlimited support during that time. So you can try everything and contact us for any issues. So this way you have confidence. And then we do a wrap-up session to make sure that you've got everything that you practiced. And we found this has been very effective. We have a small class size. We limit it to 10 participants per class. And here's a quote. I feel very confident in VS Code after Citing Group's training. No more SEU for me, which is something we really like to hear. As for the topics, first to get to install, check out the extensions, connect, dealing with library list, filters, how to compile, different ways to compile, and a lot of shortcuts that'll save you time that are our favorite shortcuts. Then content assist, snippets, searching and source comparisons in some detail, great ways to use this. And then actions profiles is a way of further customizing actually for different environments. If you have test, UIT, and production, you can customize all this to make things really fast. You no more will say, I'm just going to go to the green screen for a fast compile. You will not have to say that, and you will not have to hear that from anybody with the shortcuts and time savers we tell you. And advanced editing, and you will come away very confident about that. The next training sessions are November 17th, and then we have one in early December as well. And it's starting to fill up, so sign up for that and get a chance. There will also be advanced training. We've had requests for how to do local development on the PC with the Project Explorer, as well as Git, debugging and automated testing. Those are topics that are very much in demand. It's documented how to do it, but people would like a helping hand with that, especially setting it up. So if you'd like those also, just get in touch with us and get onto our waiting list. And then once you've gotten trained and you know what to do, basically, we offer support. And I think we're sort of unique in the kind of support we provide for developers, because we have other developer support also for PHP, RPG, and Node and things like that, Python, SQL. But we also have support for VS Code. So stay productive. If you will run into issues now and then. So bring your issues and bugs and questions to us. We have check-in calls, news and support. And for the larger company who would like enterprise support, we also can provide that with a lot more direction and personal attention. So contact us about VS Code for I support, just to keep your team flowing and productive and quick. That's my presentation. Citing Group we have our PHP distribution for IBMI. We specialize in IBMI, staff augmentation, PHP, RPG, Node, and Python. We love Valence also. Easy CNX Valence we love to work with. Training and support, helping with development, APIs, and modernization. So please do stay in touch. We will send you an email after this meeting with the recording. and other information. So come to a Code Fry Fridays, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. So now I think it's back to John, if I'm not mistaken.
John, are you there? Yoo-hoo.
I was having trouble telling which one was me.
Yeah, we both look a lot alike on this screen.
Okay.
There we are. All right. Can you actually see my screen? Did the share work?
Yeah, I see. Want to learn more about arrays, right? Some exploring the evolving world of RPG.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, before we move away from VS Code completely, though, I will quickly say, Alan, one extension you didn't mention that I found unbelievably useful lately. I found myself having to deal with a lot of CSV files. And you know what they look like in a text editor. And there's this wonderful little extension called Rainbow CSV. And
Okay.
as soon as it sees a CSV file, it colors each of the fields individually based on the separator.
Oh.
So you can see, if you want to track down what's the person's name or whatever, you can see because you track the color.
Oh, we're getting some people agreeing. Daniel and Marcus agree about Rainbow CSV. So, John, let me ask you, because you're a person who likes to explore new things. You don't get stuck. You try to see what's new. How did you find Rainbow CSV? I'm just curious.
I think I was just wandering around the marketplace one day. And came across it and thought that could be useful, and then didn't do anything with it for a long time. And then I suddenly had to start using a bunch of CSVs, and I go, wow, I'm so glad I found this.
Well, Daniel says he opened a CSV and VS Code suggested it to him. Yep. Very interesting. So obviously check the reviews, check the ratings, ask your friends, because there's a ton of extensions, so many extensions, but if you see it as popularity, yep, you can find what you need. It's not obscure, it's just right there in the marketplace. Great. Thank you, John. The recommendation.
Absolutely.
I'll let you take over now.
All right, on with arrays then. Whoops. Come on. There's a good boy. Oh, darn it. Sorry about this. Just, ooh. Right. Okay, variable dimension arrays. A couple of people have said in the chat that, we've needed these for a long time, and I agree. There's a few gaps in the support still, but most people won't notice them. Basically, there are two flavors, variable and dynamic. Now, most people are going to use dynamic, but I'll talk to you about variable as well, because there are cases where you might want to use that. But basically, when you have a variable array, the programmer sets the length as and when they want it. So if you were, for example, doing processing a bunch of invoices or new products or something, and normally you don't deal with more than 100 at a time, you could tell the variable array, I want enough capacity for 100 elements. And then if you find that you've got to the 100 and there's still more to go, you can go, okay, it's one of those months, and bump the size up to, say, 200 or whatever. So that, that's a use for variable. Dynamic length is the one that I use all the time. And I'll tell you, the reason I love dynamic length is always when I sat down and started writing a program that needed an array, you've always got this, how big shall I make it? Well, I don't want to waste too much memory, so I won't make it bigger than needed. But then, oh dear, I better add 50% to my guesstimate. And you still know that one of these days the dang thing's going to blow up, because there'll be a change in the way that your system works. So dynamic is great because it just increases the size it needs. And as I say on the chart here, it's fabulous for SQL result sets. right? So you basically just point SQL at a dynamic array, it fills it up, and you'll see an example later of how easy this is. You also have to specify a maximum size, but this is basically only a sanity for sanity checking. So basically what this is doing is it's making sure that, for example, you have an array that you expect to be in the 50 to 100 element range. It's making sure that you don't get runaway logic that suddenly puts 10,000 in there, right? So it's a sanity check value. There is actually a third flavor as well, CT data, which if you use CT data is quite useful because you can get the values in that as an array. You don't have to worry about counting. You don't have to specify a size or anything. But I personally hate CT data and never ever use it. So it's not one that I can take advantage of. So how do you define these things? Well, if you want the variable length ones, you specify it as dim star var and then the max entries. So this would give a variable length array with a maximum of 500. Now, the actual active length can be changed by the programmer as and when required. The programmer cannot dynamically change this. This sanity check limit is a hard limit. Dynamic, you specify dim auto, and again with the sanity value. RPG will automatically increase its length. So if you were to try and say, put this thing into element 101, RPG would go, oh, the array's only 100 or 10 long at the moment. Okay, I need to make it 101 long so I can put this value in. And it will do that for you automatically. Now, you do, however, have to shrink it back yourself. So if you get to a point where you say, okay, I've let this array fill up and I'm finished with it, now I'm going to start another set of data, fill the thing up again, you have to manually set the count back to 0 to have it work properly. Compile time data is specified by CT data, and the length is determined at compile time based on the number of CT data entries that there are. Okay, so just to repeat, the max entries is the absolute maximum, and it's a sanity check value. The other thing you have to remember is how big the current capacity is. So when I say var or when I say auto, in both cases, you start with a current capacity of 0. Now you can increase with var, you increase or decrease the capacity by using %ln, and I'll be talking about that in a moment. Similarly, auto starts with a current capacity of 0, but it will automatically increase to whatever highest index level you need, but you decrease it, as I said earlier, by using ln. Now, here's the cool thing about this stuff. Sortate and lookup are both constrained by the current capacity, not by the maximum array size. So typically, when you were doing sortate or something, you either had to make sure that values that weren't in use and therefore were shunted to the end had some low, high val values in key field or whatever. The fact that you had to mess around like that was resulted in a lot of people filling arrays backwards. You must have come across that during your career where you're thinking, why on earth do they start filling up from the highest element in the array and going backwards? Well, it was to deal with things like sorting. Now, you get better performance from the sort, of course, because you're restricting the number you sort, and you don't have to resort to using resort. You don't have to resort to using subarray to control the length. Similarly, lookup, similarly constrained. So how do we get and set the element limits? So %lm array name and then there is an option available. The available options are none, that is to say, it's just not specified. So %lm array name. Now, at the moment, if we use that on the right-hand side of an expression, like here, active count equals %lm, %lm would give us, on a conventional RPG array, just the maximum size. But on dynamic arrays, it will give you the active count. So if you want to know, well, how many elements have I got in total active at the moment, %lm and the array name, and store it wherever you want. Now, if you put it on the left-hand side, however, it sets the number of dynamic elements to the figure given. So if I want to say, okay, make the array 50 long, then this is how you do it. Now, asterisk keep, I'm going to largely ignore. I'll show you an example in a moment, but basically what it is for is when you increase the number of elements in a dynamic array, RPG will initialize all of the new ones. So if you have current level of 50, you increase it to 100, RPG will default initialize everything from 51 through 100. There are some circumstances when you don't want that, and the notes page will tell you. But it's basically to do with if you have got a dynamic array and you need to pass it to another program or procedure, which may change the data. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that, and you can go read if you care about it. %alloc, I think it was Anton raised a comment during the session about dynamic arrays keep moving around in memory. They don't have to. What you can do with alloc is if you use it on the right-hand side, it will tell you the number of elements that you've currently got storage for. Now, storage is not the same as the active count, right? Storage is not the same as the active element. It just means this is how much memory has been put aside. On the left-hand side, it requests allocation of storage for the specified number. So this is to deal with what Anton said earlier, asked earlier in chat, that if you know that you want probably 200 array elements, but you want to use the variable, the dynamic option, what you can do is say alloc for 200 elements, and RPG will say, okay, that's where in memory this thing's going to go. And then subsequently, when you add new elements to the array, RPG will not move it in memory, not have to move it in memory until such time that you exceed the number that you allocated for. But the important thing to note is this has got, nothing to do with the number of active elements. It's just to do with the storage and to minimize the number of times RPG might need to copy the data. Max, as you might expect, returns that sanity check level. So, changing the array size. I've got an array here that's a variable array with 100 elements. I've got a counter that I'm going to use, which is an integer. I'm going to say, set the array length to 10. So that will set it to a current capacity of 10. And then I'm going to loop through for I equals 1 to lm, that's the number. So it'll be 1 to 10 in this case, set the value of each element to the current counter. So if we display at this point what value element 5 has, it should say 5. If we then say the percentage of number of elements is 1, if I were now to try and display element 5, I should have this in the chart, but there wasn't room. If I were now to try and repeat this display of element 5, RPG would blow up. It would say that 5 is out of range, because right now the maximum is 1. But I could then set it back to 5. I can now make it 5. And if I say keep, the data will still be there, because reducing the size of an array does not cause RPG to initialize the data. RPG's attitude is, I can't access it anyway, so I'm not going to waste time initializing it. If I get asked to increase the array again later, I can initialize it there, because that's what it needs to do when it's using dynamic memory. But keep can be used to artificially force it to retain the memory contents as is. And this will correctly display 5. As I say, if you want to understand more about keep, you need to read the articles I've written. They have very limited use, and using them like this in a program is basically something you only do as a party trick to confuse your fellow programmers. All right, here's another thing I love about these things, the next option. So if you define an array with auto, then you don't have to keep track of the index at all when you add new elements. You want to add new elements, you just say star next. So if I do the same kind of thing here, I've got an auto array, sanity value is 99999. Current capacity is this, and it should display a value of 0 there. Then for I equals 1 to 50, their array star next equals I, and it will store the count 1 in element 1, 2 in element 2, 3 in element 3, and so on, because we've said star next. At the end of it all, I'm asking it, what's your current capacity? Well, I just added 50 elements. The initial value was 0, so it should be telling me 50, and indeed that is what will be displayed there. And then this is just to show you how to reference the maximum if you need it. Display array cannot exceed, and I've asked it for the max. That will give you the 9999. All right. Using SQL with dynamic arrays. It works really well with the auto arrays. You can use it with var, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Auto style arrays, you just pump the results into it and use for each to work your way through it. So I've got an exec SQL here to get a cursor. I open the cursor, I fetch for 1000 rows. That's just, bigger than any number I'm ever going to get. You'll see what I've actually done is use the same value as the sanity check level up here. But I've got results, ext name animals, so it's using an externally described file name, qualified, dim, auto. Okay, so that's the basic setup. Then when I actually go in there, I can say, okay, well, I found, well, SQL will have automatically caused RPG to increase the number of array elements depending on how many I pulled. So the element results is my count. I don't have to mess with SQL diagnostics or SQL ERD3. I don't have to deal with that. %ln will just tell me this is how many you got. Now, a lot of the time, I don't care, right? When you get a result set back, it's the data you want. You don't care whether there were 5 rows or 500. So we can do that, and then I can use a simple for each animal in results. I can just go over the result set, and this is just to prove that I got the data. I'm just pumping out a couple of the variables, and then close the cursor. Now, as I said, you can use the star var type if you wish, but I found that I had to mess around with the SQL. I had to specify insensitive scroll on the cursor, because if I didn't, then even using these fellas, I couldn't get the row count prior to actually doing the fetch. But of course, if you're using a star var, you've got to be able to set the capacity, the number of active elements that you want, before you pull them in. So I just found it wasn't worth the effort. I couldn't see any real value in using star-var, and it just made the thing as klutzy as having to use a conventional fixed array. So this one using the auto arrays, I think is great. Now, if you want to learn more about arrays, for a start, Barbara Morris did quite a lot of work when it first came out, and it's on the RPG Cafe. So this is a place you should bookmark. If you go to our authory page, and there's a collection, which hopefully, let me see if I actually got it here. Oh, darn, where did I put it? Okay. Sorry, I could have sworn I had got that page up and running, and I haven't. So let me go back to my presentation again. There you go. There. When I've been doing this a few more years, I'll get more professional. Who knows? Anyway, but anyway, authory, you can go there and you'll find the articles. There's a collection of all of the ones that we've written on this topic. Okay, and with that, we're done here. That's all of the actual content I have to go through. Let me just have a look at the Q&A and see if there's anything else relevant to my stuff. There's Alan, you've got a bunch of questions that appear to be out there still. If you guys want to have a look at that.
Okay.
On the first one of yours, I think starts with Daryl McGinnis. Simon's already given some answers, but you might want to talk to those as well. And Thane and a few others.
Right. Yeah. Now, yes, Simon has the right answer there. You basically just set it down, use %ln back to 0, or the of the array name, and remember that's just shrinking the active count. When you decrease, RPG ignores data off that element, but you can use keep to get it back. Can another process right? Yeah, Nick, I really don't want to get into this, but basically, star keep relates to the kind of thing you're talking about. What the example that I would give you just quickly, and like I say, I really don't want to get into it in depth here, but if I want to pass a dynamic array to another program, which is potentially going to add additional elements to it, then what it has to do is tell me what the new active count is. And then in my code, when I get the array back, I need to use that new active count with star keep so that the data they have added is not wiped out. Okay. So basically, if you have an array that you've said has 10 active elements, you are dealing with a scenario that is exactly the same as a conventional RPG array of dim 10. If you change it to dim 20, the effect is as if you changed to, or sorry, %lm equals 20, then the effect is as if you recoded it as dim 20 and recompiled, but obviously you can't, do that in the middle of a program, but that's the equivalent. Okay, hopefully that sorts that for you. No, Curtis asked, can the OS reuse the memory? No. When I use the option, when I use the alloc option, or at any time, let's try and think about this. Basically, what happens is when I first put an element into a dynamic array, so let's say I add element 1, RPG goes off and gets memory from the system, and it will just get a chunk. It will not attempt to just get enough memory for one element. I've found that typically what seems to be done is that it gets memory for the equivalent of 10, or thereabouts. It depends on the individual element sizes. but RPG has now reserved that memory. It owns it. So it doesn't matter whether I keep or reset or whatever I do, RPG still owns that memory on my behalf. So there is never any danger of losing that. I hope you that deals with your question. Apparently it does. Good. Will RPG clear? What does RPG clear? As far as I know, RPG clear will clear the current content. So it will keep the active count at whatever it currently is, but nuke the values of the elements. But if you've got, as Simon has said, if you have a dynamic array, there is no point in using clear, because what are you doing? You've been building this array up, you've got it up to 39 elements or whatever, and now you're starting over. What would be the point in clearing? You're basically just going to say, no, set the LM down to 0, and then RPG will take care of the initialization for you as data is added. Somebody asked about Barbara. Is she still active in the community? Yes, Barbara is still active in the community. She popped up on mid-range the other day, and which reminds me that it's time that we had lunch and a beer with her, Susan. So
Yeah.
thank you, Larry, for reminding me that I need to contact Barbara. Okay, what else have we got? Bob says, thanks, you're very welcome. Clear and array, yes, we answered that one, didn't we? All right. Any idea what pricing for Project Bob would be? Oh, good grief. No. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not convinced that IBM have got any idea what the pricing will be. I'm hoping that they don't make their usual mistake of pricing it out of the universe, because the way, from what I've seen lately, some of the other stuff coming along, Bob is going to do a lot more than most things, but he might do more than you need. And there are a lot of other projects based around Copilot and various other things that offer very similar type stuff if what you want is help in writing new code, understanding existing code, or making modifications to existing code. Right, so the answer is we will see. Is Bob actually a fork of VS Code? Interesting. I'm surprised that Steve regarded it as a fork rather than an extension, but if you say so, Don, I didn't see the presentation. So, and what else have we got? Copilot and Claude. Yeah, okay. And so Armando asked about Copilot and Claude, and Anton's already commented on that. Yes, there are a lot of people using both of them, Armando. All right. We've emptied the Q&A. So with that, sorry?
That's probably a good thing.
That's
Because
probably
we're also
a good
just about
thing,
out of
isn't it?
time.
Oh, goody. I'm not going to repeat that one. All right. Okay. Well, if you have any more questions after the event, Alan, do you want to just put your camera and mic back on so that you can say goodbye to your adoring fans? And from Susan and I and Alan, on behalf of System by Developer, we'd like to thank Sidon Group for sponsoring this session, because without them, we couldn't do it. And if you have any more questions for any of us, please feel free to contact us after the event. If you want to review the presentations or Alan's demo or anything else, you can use the link that got you in today to review the whole video again. And if you're really lucky and Zoom's in a good mood, you can even fast scrub through it sometimes. Listening to Susan speak at 2 times normal is an experience all in its own right. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Say thank you all very much for joining us. And Laura, you're welcome. Or Laurel, sorry, you're welcome. And we look forward to seeing you all at other sessions later this week and next week. Thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Everybody.